Still Team Human with heart, empathy, and love. One. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Still Team Human. I am your host, Francesca DeMeglio. This is where we discuss how to keep people at the center of our work in the age of AI and other advanced technologies. This is where we elevate the human and understand how people can ensure the new world fits around their best interests. I'm delighted to share that today our guest is Damian Copeland, an independent interaction designer and founder of CX Bridge. He is a business to business operator and believes that every business should be a customer experience business. And he calls it a bridge because many people don't know how to implement AI, and this is a way to service customers in the new world. Thank you for joining us, Damian. How are you?
Thanks, Francesca. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm very well, thank you.
That's really great. And you are moving along at a rapid pace. And you talked to me about this experiment that you wanted to conduct, and then you went ahead and did it. So tell us a little bit about that and what motivated you to do it.
Yeah, I don't hang around, so I've got an academic background, and so
Yeah.
experimentation and playing around is kind of inbuilt into me. Um, and yeah, it came really out of a discussion that you were having with Wayne Butterfield, who operates in the
Yes.
same area as me. Wayne's a really good guy, and you were talking about the idea of using personal AIs to talk to agentic AI, at a corporate level, and I thought, what does that really look like? Let's try something out, and so I very quickly designed and really threw together an experiment where I said to ChatGPT, you're a customer of a health insurance company, you've got a complaint, um, the the claim dragged on a bit too long and you had to pay additional excess, and
Mm.
you want some money back. I then told Claude that you're the business, your job is to protect the company, but also not churn the customer because the company is the customer. Um, so I so I ran the experiment, and I really did not expect the results that came out of that. So uh, ChatGPT went in really quite abruptly with its first prompt and said,
Yeah.
right, this is where we are.
Mm.
This isn't about whether or not I have a claim here. I have a claim. This is about how much you're going to pay me.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and Claude just went, you're right, banked it right. I'll offer you, and I think it was 25% of the excess,
Mm.
which was within the guardrails. That was absolutely fine.
Yes.
Uh, ChatGPT said, no, that's not enough. You need to give me either all of my excess back, or you need
Wow.
to give me a month's policy um, policy subscription back.
Hmm.
Um, and Claude just first of all, what it did was something bizarre that I've never seen before. It invented a manager, and it said, let me go off and speak to my manager and I'll come back in a few minutes and let you know what the decision is. This is
Wow.
outside my remit. Obviously, there's no manager. This is just a
Right. You
game.
were just fixing this
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it came back and then offered 100% uh, excess back, but also a full month
Wow,
of
both.
yeah, both. So it was one or the other. So it did two things. It operated outside its guardrails in terms of what it offered, but also made up this team manager. And and it was really quite shocking because I know that you don't have a specific AI Act in the US, and in the EU there is, and in the UK it's
Yeah.
covered by lots of different bits of acts that really need pulling together into a single act. But what you're not allowed to do is to pretend that you're a human if you're
Right.
not.
That's
And the
right.
fines for that are significant, uh, and they stack. So
Mhm.
the ICO could fine you 4% of your global turnover. That's a lot of money if you're an insurance business.
It is. It's
And
like
then
GDPR fine status.
it's exactly that, yeah. And then the Financial Conduct Authority,
Yeah.
their fines are limitless, and they sit on top
Yes.
of that. So there's a potential really important breach here that could really damage a business that doesn't take this seriously. Now, I was expecting a lot of fallout. I was expecting people to say, "Yeah, but you would never write this prompt." But
Mm-hmm.
interestingly, a lot of thought leaders on LinkedIn are saying, well, the next big thing is bots building bots, and
Right. Wayne
core
said that.
AI is yeah they've launched this. Um, but that's exactly what I did. I didn't write the prompts.
Right.
I got Gemini to do it.
Oh, interesting. So this experiment was really all three of, of the big boys.
It absolutely
Um,
was. Yeah,
Yeah, and got
yeah.
them all involved. That is fascinating. A couple of things that I know. First of all, I love that you did this after our conversation because I was really curious about what that would look like. And it's amazing that you already can have this possibility of doing some experimentation on it anyway. And what I really has caught my attention. Obviously, AI has gotten the idea, or at least ChatGPT's AI has gotten the idea that humans are really already on the defensive when they call customer service.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, because of the way you described how abruptly they came in. And, as a mom who often deals with these kinds of insurance questions, I have a disabled son. I'm thinking to myself, maybe I need to get a bot to be more confrontational because I'm not as a human. When I call customer service about these things, I'm usually, much quieter and trying to be, of course, very well mannered and kind to the person on the other end. And sometimes maybe that hurts your situation. But also, my goodness, the negotiation skills are terrible. And AI lied to you, even Claude, which here in America, they've been talking about Claude as the more ethical AI platform. So I'm a little shocked by that. Was that shocking to you?
It it was, but not because not because it was unethical. It was shocking because
Right, the
it invented
manager.
the team manager. I think what it was trying to do, and you're right, I agree that actually, with looking at the stuff around using models to pinpoint areas to bomb globally,
Mhm.
where OpenAI said yes, we'll do that, and
Yeah,
Anthropic said no, we won't.
absolutely.
I think it probably is, but I don't think it was acting in a way that, I mean, we're getting into a philosophical conversation here, whether it has
I
thoughts or
love that
not.
we are.
But
Yes,
but I don't think the intention was for it to be unethical. I think the intention was to go, let's keep the customer.
right. So,
So
so
doing
do
the
you
right thing
think
for
it was like
for the
also
company.
buying a little time for itself, just as a human might, in
I,
that
yeah,
situation?
I was
Yeah.
gonna say actually. I mean, being a mum, it's not only your negotiation skills, right? It's that you're time bound.
You're time bound.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what's so appealing about this idea of agents doing these kinds of menial tasks for you that you end up losing. I mean, as a mom of a disabled child in the United States, the amount of paperwork and discussions with insurance companies and medical doctors that you have to do in a day is a full-time job if you let it be. And the thought that, oh, I could just pass this off to an AI agent and get, time doing therapies with my son, for instance, that would be more productive for him,
Yeah,
sounds
of
very
course.
appealing. However, I do worry about these kinds of things. Like, is the AI bot going to be taught to be rude to everybody? Or is there going to be, you know, are you divulging too much personal information then if they're fighting for you for medical reasons and things like that? So those things cross my mind. So after you did all of this, what do you think about this future that Wayne envisioned where we have our bots talking to each other?
I think the idea of a personal bot is fantastic for the reasons that you've said.
Mhm.
And my concept, and And the other thing is, of course, that we have limited liability as individuals.
Right.
So if our bot decides to hallucinate, then that's not a big problem.
Hmm.
For an organization that's governed under something like the ICO or the FCA, that's a big problem.
Yes.
So from my point of view as an individual using a bot, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Saves time, takes the emotion out of negotiations,
Yes.
could be really helpful. I think that I think that for organisations using anything that's a predictive model where you can't control whether or not it hallucinates is a big issue. And I think, the human in the loop thing is all very well, but by the time it's hallucinated to a live customer, it's too late. It's too
Hmm.
late. You've got to be there making decisions before it even speaks to the customer.
Hmm.
That's the say. So there's no benefit in terms of cost here of losing live agents because you can only listen to one live bot at a time. So there's no
Hmm.
benefit there. You may as well have agent assist in that situation. Um, I'm not sure what the answer is, to be honest, because I think this is probably the way the world's going.
I
Um,
agree.
and I think it's a watch and wait scenario because we haven't seen any serious breaches yet. We haven't seen those organisations clamp down on businesses, and until we do, I think that everybody's on a straight road. I think that once that first breach happens, once the first fine lands, then people
Yeah.
may start to roll back a little bit.
Well, I'm curious. So I spent a little time last year as the editor of CX Network. So I talked a lot about customer experience and I did many feature reports. You can all check them out if you'd like on these agentic AI and the impact it's having on CX. And it does appear that many companies are, almost completely replacing at least some of the humans with
Mm?
bots. Um, and there's been a lot of pushback from the humans that are on the other end of the line. We had Wayne mentioned Klarna, which is the most famous case
Yeah, yeah.
probably. And everyone knows that they have been secretly recruiting humans back to the office. Um, what do you think is going to happen? I personally think it will be some sort of combination because certainly there are benefits to using a bot when you just have to schedule something, return something, ask a question. However, I do get the human pushback. It can be frustrating. I've mentioned a couple of times I had a problem scheduling a mechanic appointment with an AI customer experience a
Yeah.
representative, and what do you think as someone who's very experienced with this?
So first of all, I don't think there's anything wrong intrinsically with agentic AI. I've got a little chatbot sitting on my website, and if when you're chatting away to it, it decides that you need to speak to me, it will ask you if you want a call back. It will ask you for your details. Put those details into my CRM, and it will send me an email saying call this person back. That's a
Right.
really simple agentic workflow.
Okay.
Um, it can't talk about anything that's not on my website because that's all it has access to. So
Well, that's great.
if it hallucinates, it's only hallucinating from factual information. So
Mm.
I'm okay with that. Um, I think that um, I think I'm thinking on my feet here, so just bear with me.
Go ahead.
But
That's the point
but
of this conversation. So go ahead.
But I think with the announcement, I don't know if you saw this over the weekend with OpenAI stating that AI really should be considered to be infrastructure rather than
Oh,
software.
yes, I did see
That
that.
was an interesting move because where does the liability sit then? Um, if if
Yes.
I was if I was going to design something around that, I think that I will be using, and I'm expecting probably a lot of pushback for saying this, but I think that I will probably be looking at the foundation models to do the natural language piece up front. And then when you get down to the transactions, when you get down to anything where there's a real security implication, doing something like having small or micro language models sitting on servers, sitting in a data center that's owned by the organization.
Mm,
So by the insurance company, by the bank, but let the heavy lifting happen in the cloud. But when it
hmm.
gets down to individual transactional stuff where you're dealing with individuals' data and
Yes.
potential data leaks, then you really need to be thinking very carefully about what you do. And some of these models will run quite happily. Well, in my old business, we demoed it on a laptop, so
Hmm.
they'll work quite happily within a server room, sitting in a data center within
Hmm.
an organization. So I think that hybrid model for me works quite well. It means you can still have the agentic systems, but I mean, I have a charter on my website, and I've said quite clearly that I will not work with companies that are looking to use AI specifically to lay people off, because I think that we have a social responsibility as a business. I think that everybody has a
Yes.
social responsibility as a business, but I also think that it de-risks the organisations. I couldn't hand on heart go into a company who'd bought my services and say, let's train up this agentic AI. Let's test it with all of the use cases we can think of. Let's do a whole load of use case generation using an automated model and throw millions of tests at this. At what
Hmm.
point do I say that's ready to hit a customer?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I wouldn't be happy doing that. And it's great for the vendors to say, yeah, build this, have AI monitoring AI, have AI designing AI. But at the end of the day, the liability doesn't sit with the vendor, certainly not in this country. It
No.
sits with the data processor, and the data processor is the
And the company.
business. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so
That's
so
the
that's where I would go today.
Yeah, and in our country, in the United States, we're so behind on the legislation. I feel like there are no guardrails at all. So it's very disconcerting. And you mentioned banks, insurance, obviously and of course, healthcare, those sectors have to be so careful. I think there is some weariness, though. Especially here because we're such a litigious country and
Mm.
everyone's afraid to get sued, that gives me a little hope that there will be a little more safety, a little more of the idea of keeping humans overseeing things and that kind of thing. But I am concerned, and I actually have talked to a few of the people that I've interviewed since Wayne. Since Wayne, I got inspired and I started writing an AI constitution. This is kind of like for the world. And I want it to be like a living, breathing document that we keep changing. And I want all of you who I've talked to and the people in the audience to weigh in too. So, what are some things you think we should have in the AI Constitution?
I actually think that ISO 42001 does a pretty good job. But
Great.
like all ISO management systems, it's a little bit bloated. But things like, the ethical constraints that are in there. So, most foundational models are, they're trained from the internet, and we know that the mean user of the internet is a 23-year-old white guy from West Coast America.
Yes.
So they are intrinsically biased.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that having things in there like not as well as regulatory stuff. Things like
Mm-hmm.
removing bias, making sure that actually, if you're offering a service, the service is available and is equitable to everybody who might be using it. For
Mm-hmm.
instance.
Sure. You mentioned the bias. I know early in the earliest days of ChatGPT, when everyone was signing up in 2022, I think it was, uh, the first images that it was creating, if you mentioned, show me some people in business, it would always be white men. There would never be any representation of women or people of color or anything like that. So I think they have made some strides in that area, but of course, it's learning from us and we all have bias.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
we have to figure out how to remove it. I kind of think it's a big test for humanity in that way, especially here in the United States. It's kind of a wild journey that it's happening at this time that is the most divisive in my lifetime in the US, and where diversity, equity, and inclusion has become such a, bad word. Because I do think, I do think in the end, we are all, for the most part, aiming to keep the bias out because that comes up every time you talk about the AI.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I hope
hopeful.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
I am. I am. I mean, I'm skeptical, but I'm hopeful, if that's possible, because I do know it's a really long battle and there's a lot of, making one step forward and taking two steps back, before you get these things right. But I do feel like there is some hope on that front, just because the technology is kind of forcing us to look ourselves in the mirror and
Yeah.
figure out, why do we have all this bias? Why is it that the we're teaching the machines to act in this way or that way? Even when you mentioned how ChatGPT acted as a customer looking for help with something, it made me think, why are we teaching it that? How did it learn that lesson? It had to be from us. So,
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. It read all of the legal implications and it hit Claude with them. In
yes,
prompt one.
yes,
Um, I think the other thing that I'd like to see in any sort of charter around AI is stop using it for just random nonsense. Stop.
right.
There's I'm not going to talk about individuals, but I see people who, when I was doing my PhD, were right at the forefront of interaction design, posting posting comments with Vikings, to explain stuff that they were talking about 30 years ago. And I just think, really, is that the best use of our potable water sources to cool servers just so you can post this slop on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
That bothers me because we're draining the world's resources to post crap.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's a lot of crap out there. It's very,
It really is.
and I have to say, uh, adults might not be as discerning as younger people. Another hopeful point, my son and his friends, part of this I'm against because it's because their school and their teachers are so anti-AI, that they've become very super aware of it. But my son is always like, do not even look at that AI slop, Ma. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it, even if it's like a funny video or something that somebody made. He's like, I don't want to see it. It should be designed by a human, or a human should be drawing that cartoon, or whatever the case may be. And we do have to get more discerning, especially because also we don't talk about this enough, but the data centers are using up so much electricity. Where every time we're going on AI, we are maybe hurting our climate even more. Uh,
Yeah.
and we should be very careful and discerning about what we use it for and how we're using it. I totally agree with that. So how do you approach your relationship with AI then? You've mentioned many ways that you use it. How do you think about it? Because a lot of people, some people call it a collaborator, some people are more comfortable calling it a tool. Some say it's like a human. Unfortunately, there are too many people using it as a companion. So what do you see it as?
Personally, I see it as a tool set really. So I mean the business that I've set up, I have my own tool set where I can go and talk to customers and look at their operating model and whether they're AI ready, and if they're not, talk to them about why they're not. But to use a term that I borrowed from somebody else, I haven't automated myself. This is a tool that allows me to prompt how I have these conversations with customers, and it will help me come up with gaps in their operating model, come up with use cases for automation, uh, and it's that giving me the power to do something within a couple of weeks that I can charge a couple of weeks' work for that in the past might have taken me 3 months. That's good for
Yeah.
me. It's good for the customer, And actually, the amount of AI that it's using in real terms, the number of tokens, and I know because it is my bank account, is is relatively low. I don't use AI to generate LinkedIn posts. I don't use AI to write documents. Um, I do use
Yeah.
AI to review documents, but I don't use it to
Me
generate
too.
documents. Um, and the last thing I would ever do is produce a document and put it out to either to academia or to the public or to a customer without reviewing the thing. And this sort
No,
of thing
I
worries
can't
me
believe.
immensely.
Yeah, I can't believe people actually do that, especially since as a writer and editor, I can tell you it is not at the level of a human writer yet. There's no
Yeah.
way. Especially when there is a human touch to writing something. And even some of these things that are very highly academic or very formal or, these listicles that we write, there's a very big human element that is missing. You can tell right away when
Oh,
it is
immediately, yeah, yeah,
immediately.
immediately.
And but as you said, to review it, to help you come up with clever subtitles, headlines, to
Mm.
improve a kicker or an opening, definitely can do that. But you have to work with it together. I've mentioned this, I think, in Wayne's, but in other podcasts I've done recently that we have a great book. There's a great book out by a Wharton professor called Creativity in the Age of AI. And he describes how we have to approach this relationship. His argument is that we can become more creative, that we're not going to experience cognitive decline because you have to push back on the AI and work with the AI to brainstorm, come up with better ideas. And I find that in the writing process to be excellent. And that's not having AI write your article. You can't do it.
No,
They
it's
can't do
not. No, and in fact, one of the tools that I have, which I think is probably unique, and I'm not on here to sell my services, but I think it's probably unique, is that any use cases, and I use Claude in the background, any use cases that Claude comes up with, and says this would be a good use case for this customer to reduce the number of hours doing repetitive tasks,
Yes.
is this. I'll review them, and I have a separate tool that allows me to take the report that's been produced and to say, you've said here that this will save them 10 days a year. I don't agree that actually there's any benefit in rolling this out. How have you come up with this? And then we'll have a conversation. And it's purely transparent. So the output of that conversation then goes into the report that's given to the customer. So the customer can see immediately that this isn't just something that AI has produced. This is me using AI to help me come up with ideas, and then for
Yeah,
me to discuss those ideas with them. I think that's a good use case. I think that's a good way of using it.
absolutely. I would agree. So do you have any final messages after you conducted this experiment or even listened to what Wayne was having to say? Any ideas or final messages you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, it's a really basic one, but I think it's a really important one, which is that AI could be a real force for good for humanity, but it could also destroy us pretty quickly. Um, Not necessarily because we've got nefarious actors out there who want to do bad things with it, just because we could be walking blindly into something that we really don't understand. I think if we
Mhm.
use it with our eyes open, if we use it for good, then it could be a fantastic thing. And by the way, the reason that I describe myself as an interaction designer and not an AI consultant is because I think the interaction between the human and the machine is way, way more important than the method of getting there.
I would agree with you 100%. And I love that you brought up the idea that it could be a force for good. I totally believe that as well. And anyone who's read Max Tegard's book, he describes the different scenarios of what could happen for good and for evil with AI, all the way to like destroying humanity, basically letting robots completely take over. Um, and some of it you might say is the stuff of science fiction. However, he worked with AI for many moons and has a good enough background and was concerned enough that he wanted us to understand um, exactly what could happen if we don't put in some kind of safety rails right now. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we're doing. And by experimenting and exposing some of these things, I think we're doing a great service for people. And hopefully
Yeah, I
everyone
hope
will.
so. And I mentioned kind of the thought leaders talking about things like bots writing bots and
Yes.
having bots monitoring and that sort of thing. I think that I I often push back on people like that on LinkedIn. They are necessary because without those people coming out with those ideas, we have nothing to argue against. And so I don't want to shut
100%.
anybody like that down. I think it's absolutely necessary that we have those discussions.
Oh yes, we need you, the Waynes of the world. We need all of you. Doug Shannon is another one. Andreas Welch I've worked with. All of them are bringing everything to the forefront. And the fact is that not all of us are spending all our days looking at this stuff. And I think there's a whole bunch of people who just know ChatGPT is there if I need help with a math problem or I want to ask a question, a recipe for something, and they don't realize what this really means for the rest of our lives. And it's a big, significant change that is rolling over us right now very quickly.
Oh, get a recipe book. You
Yeah.
know, the
Yeah.
best. I mean, I do a lot of cooking. There's nothing
Me too.
better than pulling down a recipe book with Indian food in
I
it that's
agree.
literally got Indian food in it because it's been splashed by the things that I've
Flashed,
been
of
making.
course. Yes.
You don't get that from ChatGPT.
You don't. You know what? This is crazy. I sound like a crazy person, but I started my life as a newspaper editor, and I just miss like the printed paper, pulling it apart, the smell of newsprint.
Yeah, I know, I
And
get you. Yeah,
and the books are the same thing, that feeling on your fingers as you turn the page, the sound it makes. It's so sensory, and you do not get that from the computer. That's never happened.
sadly you don't know.
No, you don't. That is something I am like very nostalgic and sad about. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of real books and magazines too. I have one right here. This is such a relic. I have an old soccer magazine from the year 1999. Right
Fantastic.
next to me. I was thumbing through it earlier today. It's an Italian soccer magazine. So yeah, I'm all for print. So yes, get a recipe
Brilliant.
book. There are many brilliant ones to read. So, well, it was great talking to you, Damien. If anyone wants to get in touch with you about your business, what's the best way to reach you?
Email so Damian with an A, Damian at cxbridge.co.uk or just look me up on LinkedIn.
That's terrific. I'll be keeping an eye out for you on LinkedIn as always. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to the next conversation. I'm sure this is the first of many.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks, Francesca.
Thank you.